Fellow nerds, we are talking about Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, the new anime Netflix series starring the entire cast of Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Hmm.
One of the best movies of all time. I don't know. It's one of the best, my favorite movies of all time.
It is also one of my favorite movies. It is one that I will go back and rewatch time and time again. It's one of the few movies that I own. I own multiple digital versions of it as well as owning it on Blu-ray.
Mhm.
Um, as far as the whole owning multiple digital versions, that is entirely because I'm an idiot. So, I had originally.
Wait, no, Doug, don't say that about yourself.
If that'll be my little black bar that appears like with Scott Pilgrim. Fun fact, he's an idiot. So I I had a digital rip that I had on a hard drive, then which came from the DVD. I did get it legally. So I had a digital copy that I had on an external hard drive. Then when I was vacationing, I forgot to bring that hard drive with me, and I was like, "Man, I really want to watch Scott Pilgrim. Okay, I'll just buy it on Prime." So I did.
Oh man.
And my laptop, it's an older laptop. It's from 2011. It does not have a Blu-ray player built in. It's just got a DVD player. So even if I had had my Blu-ray copy of it, I wouldn't have been able to play it. And then so I already had a digital rip on a hard drive. I had the copy that I bought on Amazon Prime, and then I forgot that I got it on Prime, and I think I was trying to get a clip of something from it, and it was on iTunes, and I'm like, oh, I better buy it. Oh, so I've got the Blu-ray. I've got the digital copy on my hard drive. I've got the version on Prime, and then I also now have a copy on iTunes.
Well, you got the job done though, right?
I really love the movie. And when they announced this animated series, they announced it, I want to say about a year or so ago. When they announced it and they said they were getting the entire cast back, at first I thought that's just a rumor. There's no way. But then for the 20th anniversary, they brought them all back, all of them, including Brie Larson, including Chris Evans, all. And I was just like, and they brought them all back for a table read that they aired. I think it was 2020 or 2021 because they did the whole thing over Zoom, and you can still find it on YouTube. And it was crazy because you can see the love that they had for the script and the clear chemistry that they've got with each other.
Mhm.
Because as they were reading through it, they were like immediately getting right back into character. It was so great watching it. And so when they announced that they were bringing them all back for this series, I was so excited because I mean, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. Now, I will say they tricked me, and I know that I'm not the only one, but I thought this was almost going to be a one-for-one retelling of either elements from the movie or directly from the comic. I did not expect this to be what it turned out to be. I really thought this was going to be the standard Scott Pilgrim story. I thought that we were gonna get introduced to Scott. He's you know, dating Knives Chow, and then he decides to date Ramona Flowers, and then he's got to fight the seven evil exes. That's the story that I thought we were going to get just in animated form. And my assumption was that, oh, cool, okay, well, they're going to expand on the elements that they had to leave out from the movie, because that was probably one of my biggest complaints was even though I love that movie and I love the fast-paced Edgar Wright editing style, I think that's what makes it so good. It's so unique.
Mhm.
But because it had to move at the pace that it did, and because it had a limited time frame, they had to leave a lot on the cutting room floor. A lot of the character development, a lot of what you read in the comics, which if you haven't, please, 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 please buy the graphic novels, read them. They're so good.
Yeah, do yourself a favor.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, like I was saying, it is at first goes right along with the theme of the movie.
In that
It,
first episode, yeah.
yeah, it moves along, and then it hits a certain point, and then it's all different. which is cool because that's what I was thinking too. I was like, well, Doug was telling me this isn't the same thing, but it's pretty much the same thing so far.
And then they
branched
get you in
off.
the end.
I did the same thing. I'm like, did Doug lie to me?
Yeah.
Because it was like
And I'm
first
like-
episode until how the fight ended with Matthew Patel. I was
Yeah.
like looking around like, who's Doug think he is? Tells a completely different
So-
story.
Going forward, spoilers for Scott Pilgrim Takes Off.
Yeah. I don't want to. Do I want to go ahead and full spoiler it?
I think we can.
Like-
It's
Yeah, I don't see why.
it's
We're
been
free to
about
talk
what 2
about it.
weeks since it dropped. You know how
Yeah.
people watch things on Netflix.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I'm like, all right. So is this going to be some stupid way that they're going to bring back Scott after that? You know, because he basically wasn't even in the second episode. And I'm thinking, what is there? Is there a way they're going to bring him back that I'm going to accept now? Because it doesn't make any sense. But they did.
Now the title makes sense, right? Scott Pilgrim
Yeah.
Takes Off.
Yeah, he took off that second episode.
Also, I love the I assume this had to have been Mackenzie Brothers reference. Take off, eh?
It was definitely. Well, and did you guys? You know, there was a few things I really liked about this series. A few things I was kind of like, they could have made a better choice. One of the choices was because I loved, you know, how meta this was.
Yeah.
Right in the first episode, Scott mentions to Ramona, "Oh, maybe we'll get to that in a later episode."
Yeah.
And he's
That's
like,
what I was thinking.
you know, instead of the Pac-Man phrase when he first meets her, it's
Sonic.
oh, did you know there were 2 Sonic animated series going on at the same time? And the same voice actor did the voice for 2. Who would think that could happen or whatever? Because obviously the whole cast is back. I was like, oh, that's pretty funny.
That is pretty funny.
But I love the fact.
For anybody who did not get that reference, by the way, if you watch the series and you have no idea what Scott is talking about, a long, long time ago, in the 1990s, there were 2 Sonic the Hedgehog animated series. And they were both voiced by, as Scott put it, the same voice actor. And that was none other than Jaleel White, a.k.a. Urkel from Family Matters. There you go.
Oh,
There's
did
your
he
fun
do
fact.
that?
Yeah, he did that. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Keith.
It was I don't remember. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. One of the things I really
Oh, wait, one more thing.
I did not like. I love the fact that they, you know, all of a sudden, young Neil. The script just showed up with my name on it. I'm the writer now, or whatever. But the fact, and it was great that they were just basically, oh, we're filming the actual Scott Pilgrim versus the World movie. I didn't like that they called the director Edgar wrong. I'm like, that's too easy.
Oh, I thought that was hilarious.
Oh,
I thought
that was pretty weak. I'm like, it's too obvious, too easy. But I love that Kevin McDonald from Kids in the Hall did his voice. I was like, that sounds like Kevin McDonald. I'm like, is that someone doing a Kevin McDonald impression? Or is that Kevin McDonald? So I got to the end of that episode and I was like, yes, it was Kevin McDonald. Because, you know, he's Canadian. So I'm glad they hired, you know, Canadian, you know, voice actors for this.
Mm-hmm. You could tell the Canadian voice actors, or at least the ones that did enough research, by the people who pronounced it as Toronto and Toronto.
Toronto.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how many of them were actually Canadian.
I don't know. That's a good question.
So Aubrey Plaza's from Delaware. We know that.
Mm-hmm. That's basically Canada.
And Brie Larson's from California. But is Brandon Routh, is he from Canada?
You know, I did not look any of that up. I'm not sure.
It'd be interesting.
Mhm.
I think Michael Cera is Canadian.
I think you might be right. I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, I appreciated all of the meta moments too. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the series, is just like how many times they would reference, you know, the idea of it being a show, or they would reference the movie or things like that. Just little things that people would say. I thought that was great. So yeah, I agree with you, Keith.
It was nice because it had parallels to the original movie. You know, she had to go through each one of the 7 evil exes to try to figure out, you know,
Right.
who actually. And I love when she's like, it couldn't have been Todd. This was too elegant of a vegan portal
Right.
to be him. And I did not expect
because of that.
that subplot with Wallace and Todd, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that he's eating more butter.
And yes, Sierra, this is definitely an anime. So this is a weird controversy that's been going on in the anime community. There's a big website that exists that basically is a library of every existing anime that's out there. And the reason why I say it's a bit controversial is they will name certain they're basically almost the deciding on factor on whether something can truly be called an anime or not. And apparently, this website is My Anime List. They refuse to call Scott Pilgrim Takes Off an anime.
Why? Did they say why?
Their reasoning, which does not make much sense to me, their reasoning is it was made with an American audience in mind. So regardless of the studio that made it, regardless of the fact that how many, the fact that they made a Japanese dub, that they did market it to the Japanese audience, regardless of that fact, their excuse is that because it was made with an American audience in mind and marketed to them first, therefore it doesn't count as an anime. And I disagree with that statement. And Sierra says Avatar: The Last Airbender is an anime. Teen Titans is an anime. Scott Pilgrim is not an anime. So Sierra also thinks that it is not an anime, even though it was made by a Japanese anime studio.
Well, she hasn't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. So yeah, once you watch it, I think you'll understand there are definitely a lot of animeisms. So while yes, it was marketed originally towards an American audience, that's what Avatar: The Last Airbender was. And by the way, Avatar was made by an American and I think Korean studio. It was not intended. It was anime inspired, but it was not intended to be an anime. Although I would still say that it's fair to count it as one because it has enough anime isms. But I won't get into that argument now. That would take us the rest of the stream.
Put me like on the same level as Speed Racer, you know, as far as anime goes.
That's a different beast, but sure.
Well, at least the animation is very similar.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seemed anime to me. Now, obviously, I am very ignorant when it comes to anime, and I'm looking forward to becoming more well versed in it once we, do our little anime for beginners stuff. But I thought all the little like how the animation was and a lot of the little things made it very, very anime-like to me.
The fact they keep reusing the same image with Ramona dyeing her hair, or they keep that is an animeism. That is something that they do in every anime. Is they've got like this piece of stock, but it was one of the things that's been made fun of in Sailor Moon. And even Rick and Morty made fun of it when they did Jerry's costume change. Like, Rick, this is our Sailor Moon stock footage. In case we ever need you to transform into my assistant again, we can reuse it.
I can just feel the savings.
Right. That is something that they do in pretty much every anime. There's always something that they will reuse. Or my favorite thing is where they'll move the background, but like not the foreground characters. They just like will have them kind of like frozen there while voice. I can feel the savings.
Yeah. Or everything is out of focus that's in front of them.
Yep.
But that's just good art to me.
I think it's fine. I've got no issue with it.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed the story for this. I mean, little nitpicks aside about. I really enjoyed the fact that they were like, I had to come back in time because we defeated them all. We got married and then divorced. and his band. With
It turns out they
twins.
didn't even really get divorced.
Yeah.
He misunderstood the entire thing.
We had one rough patch, and you disappeared for 10 years.
Right.
Uh,
I was getting really and I love that they got Will Forte to be old man Scott and even older Scott.
did you see who was young, Scott Pilgrim?
No.
Finn Wolfhard.
Oh.
I was
He's
like,
everywhere.
I know, you can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. But they did. They went all out to get good voice talent for this. And, I mean, honestly, it paid off. I thought whoever wrote this, I think did a great job of, hey, we got to do this. When he came back, when he was at the door, and he said, I know who's really behind it. I'm like, oh, he's totally behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't guess future him did it. I thought he just was like going to be a total slacker. Like, you know what? I had to get away from this. This was too intense for me. So having it be a future self pull it back because, oh man, we're divorced and I don't want to go through that. I was like, oh, that's hilarious.
Well, and it's funny, maybe this is stupid, but if he had the power of time travel, he could have just brought himself right back to the moment he pulled him out of.
Look, nobody said Scott was smart.
That's true. And the whole Who Done It episode, oh my God. Young
good.
Neil missing all this stuff. I think young Neil, like every character
hilarious.
I thought got more time and they were more interesting characters, more well-rounded because
He
of
was
it.
really expanded on. It was nice.
But young Neil had the best jump, and he turned out to be one of my favorites because in the movie he's there, but he's just a plot device 90% of the time, probably the whole time. He's the new
Here to
bassist
take over
now.
the bass when Scott
Yeah.
leaves.
And essentially in the movie, he's just a carbon copy of Scott. Because when Knives is trying to get back at him, who does she text?
He pushes the highlights out of her hair.
Right. Young Neil, you are so hot.
Yeah.
And I like how they stuck with that motif, young Neil. So it was young Scott,
Old young
Scott,
Neil.
older Scott, older young Neil.
Yeah. Old young Neil. That's what his book was by, Old Young Neil.
Uh-huh. That was great.
And oh my God, I want to watch. I'll probably watch this again, but mainly for the 4th episode, whatever. That United States of Whatever song that
was
Lucas
great.
Lee was. Oh my
Oh,
God,
yeah.
that was so awesome.
That was so
Whatever.
perfect.
And then later,
Well,
somebody
that
told
walked
him
up in the
whatever, and he was like,
That's
Was it Kim? I think, yeah, it was Kim.
"Yeah, it was."
And all of a
Kim."
sudden he's just like, yeah, whatever. Lucas was another one that he kind of became one of my favorite characters. And again, oh my gosh, like everybody did such a fantastic job doing the voice work. Normally, I'm not super thrilled when they bring just a regular actor in to try and be a voice actor, but kudos to whoever the director was for the voice work, because Chris Evans was so good.
Oh yeah, he was right on.
He did such a good job as Lucas Lee. And just like his sort of attitude towards everything, and then I love his what he says to Gordon when he's like, I didn't even have enough money to take a first class flight back.
Yeah, right.
Oh, dude.
It's got to be first class. Huh?
And I love too when they're like,
So are you broke?
when Ramona's talking to him about Scott Pilgrim. I am Scott Pilgrim.
Right.
No, you're playing him in a movie. And then when he actually reads the script and he tricks me into killing myself.
I would never do that. That was
You already
great,
did do that, man.
And then even Todd later on when she's like, I gotta talk to you about Scott Pilgrim. I am Scott Pilgrim. She's just like, oh dear God.
Oh my gosh, Wallace. Speaking of Todd, Wallace was such an impeccable character in this. Like, even he was already phenomenal in the movie. He was probably one of my favorite characters in the movie, and he got even better in this animated series.
And you know what I love too when he was like, he looked at young Neil and he goes, how do you know what Scott and I said that morning?
Because it was right on. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you later find out that it was Bay,
Mm-hmm.
My what did
My
he call
sleep
the
paralysis demon.
yeah, sleep paralysis demon wrote it.
So the movie came out in 2010,
hmm
and all the movies that all the Marvel movies that any of these actors were in all came out in between, and now they're back to playing that same part.
hmm
Well, did you guys read? And I don't know if Doug sent it to us or I saw it somewhere else. But I guess Edgar Wright was talking to the creator of this, and he said, I would love to have the voice actors back. And Edgar Wright emailed them all. He said, I emailed them, and I got responses from everybody within an hour. I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, they've done nothing but talk about what a great experience they had doing this movie.
It looks like it would have been a lot of fun to make that movie.
It was so stylized. That movie
It
is
really
just
was.
so it's such a
Yeah.
joy to watch. You know, it's not the deepest plot. The characters aren't all that well rounded, but man, it's just so cool to watch and how they handle everything and all the little nuances they put in everywhere. And this show kind of didn't have as much of it, but because they added on so much to the story in other ways,
I was okay with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
me too. I'm glad it wasn't a one for one
Yes.
adaptation of the movie because that
And in
would
all
have been,
honesty, with animation, I don't know that you could pull off the same kind of effects and it would work the same. I think it would have probably looked too forced, and it probably wouldn't have seemed as stylish. It would have been like, oh, okay, they're just doing that because they did it in the movie. So yeah, I'm glad the pacing that they took with this. I'm glad that they did things different. In fact, overall for this entire series, I am glad that it was different from the original movie and different from the comics. It had a lot of the same elements sprinkled here and there, but the story was totally different. And even though that's not what my expectation was going in, and I for some reason I thought that I wanted a one for one remake. But I think if that's what we had gotten, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it. If I would have just rewatched the same thing again, I think I would have just been like, okay, I mean, I could have just watched a movie for that.
I would
So
have liked it better in
I'm
the
glad at
hour
the end
and
of the day
40
that it
minute
was a
movie.
different story.
Yep. But it played on
Well,
the original one, and I would like that it had those
Yes.
elements like, hey, that happened before, and it's all bad for us.
You know what this
Mhm.
was? Scott Pilgrim What If. That's what it was.
It kind of was,
Kinda,
yeah.
yeah.
But I love
I
some of
feel
the.
like okay, are you guys familiar with the concept of New Game Plus?
No.
What
Oh,
So-
yeah, yeah. Once you beat it on, like.
Yeah. A lot of times in I've seen it a lot in RPGs where once you play a game, they'll let you restart the game, and a lot of times you'll get to keep a lot of the items that you had before, a lot of the money, a lot of the skills and your level and everything that you had before, and now you get to play through the game almost with an advantage. You're almost like super OP, but you also now have all the knowledge that you gained in playing through the game, so now you can maybe unlock certain things that you didn't know about before. And I feel almost like that's what this was. This was like a new game plus. So we've got um old Scott realizing I defeated the seven evil X's, I got married to Ramona, things didn't work out. I'm gonna change things. I'm gonna take all of the knowledge, all the skills and everything that I gained, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna change the entire story. Now it was dumb the way that he did it, but
Oh, Scott is not the brightest dude.
no, it's not.
So that
It
fit.
worked out for him very well.
But yeah, so that's why I asked Sierra in the chat. I wanted to know if she had seen the movie before, if she had read the comics before, because I don't know that you would fully appreciate everything in the series if you didn't already know the story of Scott Pilgrim going into this. I think if you were brand new to Scott Pilgrim, if you had never seen the movie, never read the comics, and then you watched the series, I think you would be lost because they make so many references to the movie, to the comics that it helps already kind of understanding who these characters are and understanding the story that took place before.
So Sierra wants to know, do you think the show is going to do what the comics did? Because in the comics he ends up with knives, but then Knives rejects it.
I don't know that, and I find that hard to believe.
Hmm.
But I
Well,
have
at the end of the
So,
movie too, she was like,
show
"You should go with
do
her
what the
because
comics
she's
did.
really your."
Right.
yeah.
No, I don't think, because this show kind of this is also something else that it does. The show takes the opportunity to kind of correct some of the things that were controversial maybe in the comics and the movie. So they sort of start off this show, instead of saying that, instead of Scott so proud of himself saying, "Yeah, I'm dating a high schooler," instead Scott's a little like, "Are we dating?" He doesn't seem to consider it, at least in this show. And they kind of brush over that. They actually start the first episode, they start almost a quarter of the way through where the movie would have been. So they skip over the actual dating of Knives. Like we see her sitting at their rehearsal, the Sex Bomb rehearsal, and then we see her show up to the concert. But we don't
We
really
are
see
Sex Bomb. One,
one,
two,
two,
three,
three,
four.
four. But we don't see them, actually hanging out at the record store, or going to the Salvation Army, or going to the arcade or anything like that. And when they say, "Scott, you need to break up with your fake high school girlfriend," and she's like, he kind of mentions like, "Well, is she really my girlfriend?" And I think that's because Edgar Wright and because Brian Lee O'Malley, I think after enough time has passed, I think they realized that was kind of an icky thing to have a 24-year-old dating a high schooler.
And Sierra asks, he doesn't want Ramona because of all the baggage, but they had sparks. And
They
you're
did.
willing to take that baggage because of the sparks.
Yes.
Just ask Wallace when he finally got sparks with his Nintendo executive.
Oh my gosh. That was great. I love that part too. And I love the
So he gets all the games for free? Yeah, every game. He doesn't get every game.
I love that they have a virtual boy locked behind this giant safe that he's got to open up with an NES controller. That's great.
Down,
Like,
left, right, start.
he's got the power to convert anybody.
He does. Oh, Wallace, man.
It's like he did in the movie.
Yeah, he
Mhm.
converted Scott's sister's boyfriend in the movie.
Anna
and
Kendrick.
then-
Wallace,
Yeah.
not again.
Yep, he's just got this power.
He does. That's what he did with Todd. So you want to go run lines in your trailer? I love
Oh
that they
my
keep run lines in the trailer. Trailer. We have to go run lines in the trailer.
And I loved when Lucas Lee's like, I'm reading my lines. She's like, I know you got a girl in there, whatever. And he's like, oh, wait, you're really reading the script.
Yeah, but just making up what I say.
Is that why you said, cool, let's party? Like so many times in that movie.
Yeah.
I was dying laughing. I'm like, oh my God.
And then they give him wine. He says, "All right, let's party."
And I love too in the episode when Ramona and Aubrey Plaza's character go out to talk about all the things that happen. And Lucas Lee, she's like, I've been gone 90 minutes, and they built a skateboard ramp.
Right. I love that. His low point, Gordon's low point, is just kind of like laying his own filth, watching terrible anime. And by the way, this is my theory, but I think the anime that he was watching on TV at Julie's house, I think that was a reference to, and all of the anime fans will get this once you see it, I think that was a reference to Card Captors, or Card Captor Sakura, as it's called in Japan. Because
But is
that
it
opening
anime
scene, that was like
on
almost
this
identical.
movie because this is an anime? It's an American cartoon and an American cartoon for
Sure. Okay.
Americans and Canadians.
And Canadian.
Gordon's Canadian.
But yes, I love how they become like best of friends. That's great. They get along so great. They're hanging out. They're shooting paintballs in the place. Oh yeah, and building that skateboard ramp. I was gone for 90 minutes. Now, one of the things that just a minor complaint. One of the minor complaints that I had about this series is I feel like we got less of Envy. And I think that's a crime. You can't trick me by saying we got Brie Larson to come back and voice Envy Adams, and then she's like barely in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
me
she
too.
was. She had some good scenes though, like when Todd became Scott Pilgrim, and obviously she was Ramona, and they couldn't get
Yes.
through that scene, and they're like, "Hey, let's do it this," and then Wallace is making out with Todd,
Yeah.
and then it led to
Yeah,
the whole
that was
thing. But yeah, it's out of all the characters, I think I understood why her role wasn't as expanded upon as some of the others, only because it's Todd's ex, and she did end up, I think, sitting in with Sex Bomb after Knives joined too at the end. Didn't they say something about she collaborates with him now?
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I don't even think Scott Pilgrim had the most face
Oh, yeah, I
time
mean,
on
he
the
was
show.
barely in the
Definitely
Scott
Ramona.
Pilgrim show. This was definitely Ramona was the main character.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I love some of the titles of the episodes: To Scott, To Pilgrim,
Yes.
and then my favorite, The World versus Scott Pilgrim.
Yes. Now,
was
did
like-
you guys catch that each one of the titles was all done in the style of a different video game?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, like Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life, that was Super Mario Brothers. Yep. I thought that was nice that they were sticking with the whole like video game thing. I also like the fight between between Gideon and
Matthew Patel.
Matthew Patel. How it looks like just like two kids playing shitty Street Fighter or something. Kick, kick, kick. Like I can just imagine some kids saying, "No, hold on, stand still. Let me try this move. Let me try this move."
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that looked like was that Street Fighter that was player 1, player 2 when she was going after the two guys with the robot.
Yeah.
I forgot what that episode was called, but I thought that's
That was another couple of people that they didn't really expand on. So the Kariyanagi twins barely got any screen time at all in the movie. I don't think they had any lines in the movie.
No, they did, because he was like, "Oh yeah, because we're in a band together later." So
I don't remember them talking at all.
No, I don't
remember
think they
the
spoke at all in the movie. They had a few lines.
oh, the
in,
movie. You're right.
Yeah, they had a couple lines in the show. But other than the future versions of themselves, working with Scott and Scott being old Scott being in a band with them, they really didn't expand on their characters much. Like we didn't get much more in the way of backstory. I think we got a little bit I think we got the little Ramona flashback with them. Explaining the fact that she was dating twins and everything, and the fact that she was tricking them, but they were tricking her. And that was nice that we got that, where we didn't get that in the movie, but they still kind of did the twins dirty. They barely gave them any lines, barely expanded on their characters.
Well, that's what season 2 is for.
They did it.
There you go.
The Kariyanagi sequence, that's what they'll call it.
Oh, jeez.
I wonder
Roxy was fantastic in this.
May Whitman is great in everything she does.
She is.
And her last name didn't hurt. Made the character that much more powerful.
Keith's cousin, and after
that's
all.
right. We all are ninjas, so it just.
Did you like how all the paparazzi were ninjas too?
Yes, I did. And Lucas just beats the living crap out of him.
Right.
And it was only worth like $99 or whatever.
I like at Scott's funeral, they've got the coins sitting in the coffin. It's great.
Yeah. I'm so sorry this happened. I'm like, those are coins.
I also loved how Knives played Matthew Patel. She's like, I just read his thing and knew he liked theater. And, oh my God, you're a theater major? I would love to see that. Yes, that would be great. But, and, we talked about this earlier, the show creator has said he doesn't think they're getting a season 2, which outside of that little post-credit scene with Gordon and Julie plotting against Scott and Ramona, it was a self-contained story. They could have done it. So it's really odd that the creator would come out and say that after throwing in that post-credit scene, because I thought for sure, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, sweet, I can't wait for season 2. Now it doesn't appear we'll get it, which is terrible. But we can cross our fingers and hope.
Well, Netflix is kind of cutthroat with who they decide.
They are pretty cutthroat.
To re-up. So if it doesn't stay in the top 10, it's probably on its way out.
If you watched our video about the mid-season finale of Invincible, one of the things that we had said was that Amazon Prime didn't do a great job of marketing Invincible that well outside of Prime. And I think Netflix isn't as bad as that. They have done some marketing, but once it aired, it was like, now it's on its own. And while I did see, within certain Scott Pilgrim communities, people who are already familiar with Scott Pilgrim, and it would be like, relying on the Marvel community to be the only ones to talk about a Marvel movie. And it's like that, I think Netflix should have done a little bit better in marketing this. And now that it has aired, and now that enough people, without spoiling it, and now that enough people have mentioned this is a different story, this is not a one-for-one remake, now that enough people have said that, I almost feel like Netflix should make another ad or commercial or trailer or something, showing some scenes from the show.
There's a lot of people out there who will not watch, once they hit a certain age, they won't watch anything animated.
And that's a shame.
It is a shame.
It is. It really is their loss. Because there's a lot of good series that are animated. Somebody had made a comment. There was a review that I was watching for the movie quite a while ago, and they had theorized that was an issue with the movie. How, because we know that unfortunately it did pretty poorly in the theaters. Their theory was that when in the trailer they had all of these little video game elements and the P bar and the Zelda music and stuff like that, that people who weren't familiar with it may have confused it for being a kids movie and therefore didn't go and see it, not knowing what it was about. Absolutely. And yeah, that is a shame that somebody might see animated series and be like, oh, that's for kids, when it definitely is not.
No, just like the previous episode of Invincible, not for kids.
Nope.
Hey, should we give our rating for Scott Pilgrim Takes Off?
Yeah.
Dave?
SPTO. While I really enjoyed having all those actors and actors' voices back and recognizing their voices, which is cool because then you can picture it being live action in your head with the live action stars you've already seen, and the plot starting off the same and then showing off a different angle, like a what if, like we said. Overall, I'd have to give it a 7. I think it's above average, but it's not. It didn't blow me away. It's like I said about the last thing, and I will definitely watch it again. But it's not something I if they don't end up having a season 2, I'm okay with it. If I was heartbroken, I might rate it a little bit higher. But this served its purpose. I liked it. 7, solid 7 for me.
All right.
And I think this was a very nice companion piece to the movie. I think without the movie, this doesn't make a lot more sense. This was really made for fans of the movie, to kind of show a different, angle of what could have happened or why Scott would want to do what he did in this show. I mean, I think they did a great job. I think the writing was strong. I think all the voice acting was really good. I like some of the musical pieces they did. It wasn't as stylized as the movie like we talked about, but they did give a lot more character development to a lot of these people, and you really kind of understand, filled in pieces that were, even though they weren't missed in the movie, it was nice to know how some of these things happened. Like the twins dating Ramona, all of those things. The Ramona doing her hair a different color before every episode, I thought was a nice touch. They added a lot of good things in there. But the whole calling him Edgar wrong, I thought was just, weak, too easy writing. They could have came up with something a little better than that. But overall, I enjoyed it, and I think I'll definitely watch it again. It's definitely a companion piece to the movie, and because of that, I'm going to give it a 7.5. Like Dave, it was definitely above average, but it wasn't, tremendous, outstanding. It wasn't something where I was blown away watching it, but it was enjoyable.
All right, Doug,
So
let's see what you got.
I was really confused going in because once we got past the first episode, I was like, when we got to the end, and I was like, oh wait, what am I watching? What just happened? And it took me a minute, and I remember sending you guys a message, and I was like, I'm not quite sure what to think of this so far. I was watching it, and I'm like, I think I had just gotten to episode 2 or something, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. It's different. It is certainly not the same thing. They're telling a different story, and at first I was almost like, I think I was finding myself getting a little bored. And so that's why I am glad that they told a different story at the end. I am glad that they finally switched it up. And I like your phrasing, Keith. I like the fact that you said, yeah, it's a companion piece. I think it is a companion piece for the comics and for the movie. I think if you know the story already, that's what makes this show good. In fact, I wouldn't even really recommend watching this show unless you're already familiar with the primary story, whether you got it from the comics or whether you watch the movie, either or. I think trying to go in and watch this by itself, bad idea. You're going to be confused because they make so many different references. But that is one of the things that I think I do like the most about this is how meta it gets sometimes. I love that kind of humor. It made me laugh every time it came up. And I did end up watching it again because I did enjoy it. And I don't think I gave it its proper due my first go through because I was so taken aback. I didn't know what they were doing. Because if you go back and look at a lot of the advertisement for this series, they almost make you think, yes, this is a Scott Pilgrim series. And in fact, the only thing that Bryan Lee O'Malley and Edgar Wright said about it in, leading up in any Comic-Con appearances, the only thing they really mentioned is, oh yeah, we're doing things a little different. They don't tell you that they're telling you a completely different story. So I was definitely taken aback, and I think this is one of those where if you go into it knowing that it's a different story, it does make the viewing a little bit better. And I did enjoy it. I enjoyed a lot of the humor. There was a couple of cringy moments, like what you pointed out. I wasn't upset by the Edgar Wrong thing. I can tell that was probably a joke that he made. Most likely, he was just like, "Oh yeah, if you're going to do a thing where we're making fun of the fact that they're making a movie version, then I want you to do like." And in fact, they even have Weird Al come in and do a voiceover. So of course, it's a parody. So you've got to have the master of parodies. So
Yeah,
little
Weird
things
Al
like
was
that.
a nice touch.
It really made it, and I got to give this series an 8. Yeah, it didn't totally blow me away, but it was really good. I enjoyed every bit of it, and I think the end was a nice way to wrap things up. If they don't do a second season, I think like Dave, I'd be fine with that. It was a nice self-contained story. I'd be happy if they did do a second season. That'd be cool, because if they expand on what Gideon was alluding to with Julie, the fact that they're going to be kind of supervillains, then that would be neat, But if they don't, fine, let it be like the ending of the Super Mario Brothers movie from the 90s, where they make it seem like there's going to be a sequel. There was never going to be a sequel to that movie. It was so bad.
And Sierra is asking us in the chat, which is more enjoyable, Invincible or Scott Pilgrim?
I would say Invincible.
Yep, Invincible.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of judge them because Invincible kind of
they're
is
so
very
different.
serious. Yeah, where
Yeah.
this is
They're too
silly and
different.
goofy. And
But if I could only watch one of them, I would probably pick Invincible.
yeah,
I just think it's got more depth to it. Scott Pilgrim is fun, but Invincible has like a mix of everything.
Invincible's going somewhere. And it's
Invincible
still
does get deep. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off isn't super deep. It expands on pre-existing characters. And so, yeah, I think what Keith said is literally the best description that you can give it. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is a companion piece.
I'm a pre-existing character.
Yes, you are. You're the best
you
pre-existing character. But yeah, so I'm willing to give it an 8. I recommend that you go watch it. Definitely check it out. Don't go in blind. Read the books or watch the movie first. It makes the show make more sense. And also, just go watch the movie. Really, it's so good. I'm not saying don't read the comics. The comics are really good too, but the movie's so stylish. It's so fun. Scott is a terrible character. Ramon is a terrible character. That's okay. They get better in this show. Hey fellow nerds, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of this stuff, make sure that you check out our Twitch stream. We try to do these live Sunday or Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Keep an eye on our social media to find out when you can join in live and chat with us during these live streams. Also, as usual, don't forget to check out our other social media. Add us at Twitter, comment down below, and we'll see you next time right here on Not Your Status Quo.